All right, well, welcome to Connection Point. This is Todd Bartley, and I'm happy today to have with me Mike and Patricia Myers. Mike is a pastor, a family pastor here at the church, and Patricia's his wife. And I've been so excited to have you guys sit down and have this conversation. We've been talking about this for how long, Mike?
Oh, gosh, at least a year, maybe more.
Maybe more, yeah. Probably a year or more. We've wanted to do something like this. So it's great to have you here. I want you guys to share your story with the church in this podcast so that they can connect with you. That's kind of the overall theme of this, is getting a connection from the people that are here at church with you so they can learn your stories. And I think you guys have one of the most interesting stories that I've heard of, like, how you came together. So I know, Mike, why don't we start off? You're in high school, right?
I mean, not currently, yes, but
I was
to start the story. We were in high school. It's Point Pleasant, New Jersey, little beach town, probably about the size of Venice, really. And 1989, just graduated high school. Actually, just turned 18, and had been at the beach all day, and was at my buddy's house, and was walking home from his house, and in nothing but my board shorts, and I see this young lady sitting on the steps across the street from my house with my neighbor. And I knew my neighbor would host exchange students from time to time, so I kind of deduced that this lovely young lady was probably an exchange student. So I thought to myself, and this is the first time I'd ever done this, I thought to myself, the neighborly thing to do would be to introduce myself, right? I want to be a good American neighbor, right? So I went to introduce myself to her, and that's kind of where we started. She was 17 at the time. She didn't speak any English. I clearly didn't. Well, she spoke a little bit of English, but I didn't speak any of her language at all. So the conversation didn't go far.
Yeah. So Patricia, what brought you here? So what's the story on how you get to New Jersey, Pleasant Point?
Point Pleasant.
Point Pleasant?
Yes.
So how did you get to Point Pleasant, New Jersey?
My love story with America began way before 1989. When I was 15 years old, I met a girl that had just been an exchange student. And here I am in this small little town, about 90,000 people. And that was before globalization or anything like that. So when I heard about becoming an exchange student, it just felt so exotic to me, to go to another country and learn the language and all that stuff. So I thought, what the heck, I am going to apply to become an exchange student. So I went to Rotary Club at the time, and I filled out this application. I had an English teacher help me, which was not that big of a help,
no.
because we learned later that my application had been filled out incorrectly. So what happened was I sent out my application. I was 15 years old, and I heard absolutely nothing from Rotary. And I could only be an exchange student until I turned 18. So 2 years go by, and nothing. So I decided, what the heck, I'm not going to be accepted to be an exchange student. I'm just going to go to college. Well, when I got into college, a week later, I get this letter saying that I had been accepted to become an exchange student, and I was going to go to Point Pleasant, New Jersey. I had no idea where that was. We had to buy a map. Point Pleasant was not in the map. I'm like, what am I doing? It was like this tiny little place. So anyway, long story short about becoming an exchange student, when I got here, I found out through my host family that the reason why I had been, nobody had accepted me was because my application had been filled incorrectly. So where they had all those questions that you're supposed to answer no, do you do drugs, do you smoke, do you have any criminal history, do you, it's like, mine was all yes. Yes. So my application kept going around and around, and nobody would accept this girl until it came to the hands of the chairman of the Rotary Club for that department. And he looked at it and he said, you know what, this application has been going around and around. So I think that either this girl is brutally honest and I'll take her, or she made a mistake, which case she needs a chance to come. So that person just happened to live right across the street from Michael. So that's where this story began.
Yeah, so
I had to wait for a couple of years because if I had gone anywhere else, we would not have met.
Yeah.
So that comes to me sitting at those front steps when he came by without a shirt on, all tan, all feeling like he was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And
So
stood in front of me, and I couldn't understand what he said, but he just crossed his arms, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Flex a little bit.
You.
I was trying to impress.
Right.
It was not.
It was not pretty.
working.
Yeah. So what
Can I say
what were
something?
your first thoughts?
Can I add something just
Sure.
before you do?
Yeah.
Because I know where you're going. But and you said this earlier before we started recording. That's just one of the many, many things. When we look back at it now, we can see God's hand. Mm-hmm. Very, very clearly directing
Yeah.
things.
And bringing
there's
us together.
more. I mean, yeah.
And bringing us together.
Even that day, for her to arrive on the day that she arrived and to be there, she had been in a motorcycle accident. After she got accepted, she was in a motorcycle accident and injured her head, and was in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to delay her arrival. Had she not had her arrival delayed, all of those, there was a lot of things that needed to come into place for us to meet exactly on that day,
at the right
that
time.
moment.
At the
Yeah.
right
But then he came by and he was talking, and I remember him walking towards me, and I remember thinking, oh my goodness, this is like an American God with little g. I thought he was very handsome and all that. And
okay.
I'm like, if I were to marry an American, that would be
So this
him,
was like your
right?
if
That's
you
him
if you were
coming.
in Brazil before you came to America, this was
That's
like
the
your
ideal,
quintessential
right?
American guy.
So he walks towards me, and by the way that he stood and he looked and he was talking, I'm like, oh, you're so stuck up. You don't have a chance.
Oh,
I'm like, so
no.
that was I'm like, forget it. So that was how we met.
Yes.
Great. Well,
So-
obviously then something else happened. What you had graduated at this time?
Yeah. So
And-
after this meeting, I think we saw each other one more time. She'd come over to my house, and then I went away to college. And my younger sister, who's only about a year and 10 months younger than me, was still in high school, and so the two of them became really good friends and would go to school together. I think she didn't take the bus, but they would ride to school together. And my younger sister started teaching her English and helping her, and it sort of became her first friend in the U.S., which allowed for me, as when I came home from school, to visit and that kind of thing, that she was always around. And so I got a chance to get to know her better, and I got a chance to change her initial impression of me.
By Thanksgiving, when he came back from college, I could already speak quite a bit of English and understand quite a bit of English. So that's when we began to talk, and we went to a bonfire, and it was the first time I saw snow, and he was so kind. He made me a snow angel. I had no idea what he was doing, but he just
Laid down.
laid down and made me this snow angel, and I thought it was so adorable. And so anyway, my mind I started
Yeah. So
changing.
you're how many miles away are you from home, and what is home? I know you're from Brazil. What's the city?
Right, yeah. So I'm from a small town in the state of São Paulo called Assis. It's in the middle of nowhere, just cornfields and sugarcane plantations. So hours and hours from the ocean, warm most of the time, it never snows. So New Jersey to me was very, very different.
Okay.
So,
I bet.
So I got to see that snowman, and by December, we were already kind of really interested
when
in each other.
I made the snow angel, and because I was walking her home, it was just the two of us, and it was snowing. It was very romantic, and I made the snow angel, and I'm standing there, and of course, I'm from New Jersey, 18 years old. I'd never traveled overseas, knew nothing, just before the age of the internet.
Did not know where Brazil was.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
And I'm standing there and I'm looking at her after I made the snow angel, and I'm thinking, I would really like to kiss this girl. And I thought, I better not. This could be like an international incident. I don't know if it's if I'd be breaking some kind of law, or I have no idea. So I held off.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. But again, I think I'd started to break the ice with her a little bit.
So we went out on a few dates. Not even a few dates.
You-
No, it
you
was
just
like we
jumped a
just
big
got
part.
together. Am
Yeah.
I jumping?
You are.
Okay.
Well, we
Move
did.
it a
We hung
little
out
bit
with
closer.
friends.
No, just move the whole microphone like a little closer. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that was helpful. Like we hung out in groups with friends, so we weren't out on
Right. So you're
dates
not-
or anything
yeah.
like that. And
So you're
yeah.
so you're in college.
Yep.
You're coming home occasionally, probably more often because
Yeah, my
you have-
trips
you
home
have,
became
like,
more frequent.
I really want to go see my mom and dad.
Yeah, that's
Right.
why.
So you're coming home. How long are you in America for?
I was here for the extent of the program, which was a year. So it was my senior year in high school.
Okay. So when did you come? Then
So
you got in.
I
at
got
what?
here in August of '89,
Okay.
and I left August of 90.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So
Yeah.
you're gone for 6 or more. Mm-hmm. So what happens? So you're going through. You come home. That summer, when you come
So,
home, I mean, what?
Before the summer, so as we're getting into the spring, my younger sister calls me on the phone. I'm at school, I'm in my dorm, and she says to me, "Hey, listen, Patricia has her prom coming up, and she's a year older than all the kids in her class. She's not really interested in going with any of them. Would you consider going to the prom with her?" And I said, if she calls me herself and asks me nicely and says, please, 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 would you take me to the prom? Then I'll think about it. And
See, I was right in my first thought when I met him.
So
he is stuck up.
no, I was obviously kidding around, but I don't know how long after, not
Yeah.
long after that, the phone rang again, and it was Patricia. And there was this long kind of quiet pause on the phone, and then she says, please, 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 would you go to the prom with me? And I just started
Yeah.
laughing. And that was actually the prom. We went on one date before the prom.
Yeah.
And I went home, and she went out to help me find a tuxedo, and we went out for pizza. And then we went to
Yeah.
the prom, and then we dated. I mean, we went on dates over the summer
Yeah.
for a little bit. And then
Yeah.
she went on, then she had to go home.
Right. So then, like, you got
So
this.
then-
you got this date like looming in front of you, and you're like, "I'm gonna go, and my year is done."
Yeah.
And we're how many? It's
Oh, my
a
swell.
few thousand or
4,000
Yeah.
miles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty far.
So,
Yeah. So then, what are your thoughts?
Oh, my thoughts, I'm never going to see this guy again. Because he was just so far away for me to think, oh, I'm just going to get a plane ticket and come back. And it was very expensive. I depended
No,
on my parents. I'm like, and now it just seems like things are just so much easier. 30 some years ago, it was not that simple.
We were like, we
Right?
didn't have the internet. We didn't.
No, there was no internet.
We had to
There
pay to make a long distance
Oh,
phone call
it
that
was
was
so-
in the town that was
Yeah.
only 20 miles away.
Right.
So it wasn't like you could just text and
No,
or talk over a
no.
chat or anything. So,
So
yeah.
he took me to the airport with my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law, and now of course. But we just said it was the worst goodbye. It was so horrible. I mean, it felt like my heart was being taken out of me. It was
Yeah.
awful. Went back to Brazil, and I was miserable for the first few weeks that I was there until I got a letter from him. And of course, back in the day, it would take
Yeah.
2-3
probably
weeks
2-3 weeks for a letter to
for a
get
letter
there.
to get there. And so I just get the sweetest letter from him, and he's telling me how much he loves me and he misses me. And I'm like, wait a second, you're telling me all this now? Why didn't you just tell me not that I would be able to do anything, because I had my exchange program
Right,
was
you had
over.
to-
I had
you
to go back.
Right.
So we just, from that point on, we just started dating. We continued to date through letters. So you would take, a month for a letter to get there, and I would respond. Another month for the letter to come back.
I wouldn't even know. She would
We-
answer stuff from a letter that I wrote her, and I'm like,
a month and a
didn't
half
even remember
ago,
what
we
you
did not
asked
know.
her.
what did I ask? I don't understand. What is this an answer to?
But we did. We dated for almost 2 years like that.
Yeah. And I got to say, and I tell young people this, I'm like, because they're like, oh, long distance relationship doesn't work. I'm like, you know what? When you remove the ease of access and the pressure of just sitting and like snuggling with each other or whatever, right? When you remove that and all you have is the ability to talk, you get to know, if you're intentional about it, and we were, you really get to know that other person.
We would send tapes back and forth, the little
Right, yeah, old
record
cassette tapes,
We'll
yeah.
just record
Yeah.
each other talking, and send it back and forth to each other. So that was a couple of years. And then he,
Oh, this
2
is a
years
great
later,
story. Yeah. So I had been plotting with my college roommate. I would stay up at night and I would sort of fantasize about how I could get to Brazil. And I had all these ideas. And my best idea, I thought, was that I was going to go up to New York, because it wasn't far from my home. I was going to go up to New York and I was going to find a ship that was bound for Brazil. I was going to either stow away or hire myself on. And then when it got to Brazil, my plan was jump ship, swim ashore, find Patricia. Right? This is brilliant.
great plan.
Brilliant plan. And I think God actually thought that I might actually do it. And so I was driving down the road in my college town in my 74 Beetle and stopped at a red light, and the girl behind me didn't stop, smashed with everything right in the back of my car. When her insurance company came out, the guy said, "It's a 74 Beetle. I'll give you $1,500.
Yeah.
And,
Totaled it.
Right. And I was like, okay. So I took the check, and the Beetle was still moving. So I was like, I wonder how much a ticket to Brazil costs. And so I took my $1,500 check. I went to the travel agent, and I said, hey, what does it cost to go to Brazil? They said $1,200 for a ticket. I said, oh, that gives me $300 of spending money. So I bought a ticket. And I spent my winter break with her family in Brazil that year.
Yeah. So
For that, what was a couple of weeks?
no, he
No,
was there
Almost a month.
Almost a month. Okay.
Yeah.
He was there for a month, and then, so my family got to know him. We, spent a lot of time together. We fought a lot,
We did fight a little bit.
but
What?
I know.
We-
Well, because
What do you fight about?
we were
he was interviewing me, and I did not know that. He was interviewing me for marriage, and he had like all these ideas in his head, and I'm like, I don't agree with any of those ideas. I just don't see that happening. I was very academically oriented. He was very sports oriented, and my mind was like, just you gotta go. I was studying law, so I'm like, you just gotta go and you gotta study, and and he was just kind of like living life. So I'm like, maybe I was wrong. I don't know. But then towards the end, we worked things out.
We did.
Okay.
We worked things out, and then he left.
Yeah. So you go back. So now how long has this been since your original meeting?
So 89, 90,
So
2 years.
That was 2
years.
years
So that
later.
was 2 years
yeah, it was
later.
Christmas, New Year, Christmas of 91. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, it took us 2 years to see each other again, and then he was there for a month, and then he came back.
Yep.
I went back to school and all that, but I was miserable. I was so sad, and my dad saw that. And I would cry. I just did not want to go to school anymore. I was just missing him. And my dad says to me, well, you know what? Just focus on your school. I'll buy you a ticket for July. And you can go and see Michael, and you can, just go back, and I'll send your brother with you because he hasn't been to the U.S. yet. You guys can visit for a month, and we'll move on from there.
And in the
Great.
meantime, in one of our conversations, I had sort of hypothetically asked her, like, hey, if you could go to college in the U.S., would you do it? And she said, yeah, I think I would. And so I decided that I was going to go out and I was going to try to find the admissions department, which I didn't know where it was. And I'm like, I'm going to go find the admissions department and find out what does an international student have to do to go to school here? And so I went out looking, and I walked into this building, and I'm asking around, like, is there, who's in charge? And they're like, the chairman's office is over there. And I walk in, and there's a guy in there, and he's speaking German, which I thought was weird. I'm like, okay. And when he finished his conversation, he was very abrupt, and he's like, what do you need? And I'm like, well, I said, I have this friend, and she's Brazilian, and she'd like to go to college here. And he cut me off, and he said, does she speak Portuguese? And I'm like, well, yeah. And he's like, how is her English? I said, well, she lived here for a year. English is excellent. It's fluent. Can she pass a TOEFL test? I'm like, I'm sure.
The TOEFL test is
Yeah,
test
the
of
test of-
English as a foreign language
Right.
that it's needed for you
Okay.
to get into college.
And
Good. I was wondering what that was.
and he says,
I don't know.
is she educated? I said, well, she's in her second year of law school in Brazil, so yeah. And he says, I need to talk to her today. And I'm like, okay. He's like, here's my phone number. Have her call me. I need a Portuguese teacher for next fall. And if she can pass the test and get in, I can give her a scholarship to teach Portuguese here at the college. Turns out I had walked into the foreign language department.
Not the admissions office.
Not the
No,
admissions office.
I was in the foreign language department. Had no idea that's where I was. I'd never been in that building before because that wasn't my major. And I broke land speed records getting back to my apartment to call her. And
Yeah.
so her dad gets her ticket for her to come up in July. And that's
Yeah.
where.
And I
So
took the TOEFL.
what happens then? Yeah.
Well, so I was going to be here for a month. And I'm like, this is my opportunity, right? So I went ahead and I took the test and I passed it. And I'm like, okay, now what? What do I do with this? Because my parents did not know that I was going to be doing this. So I decided, I took the test, and they're like, well, when you go into school, switch your visa from a tourist visa to a student visa, and you just come into school. So I put my brother on a plane, and I stayed. And when my brother got to Brazil, just
So this
without
was,
me,
This was without your parents' knowledge.
that's without my parents' knowledge.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's just be clear that I did not know that.
But
I found
anyway.
out about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I found out that they didn't know.
And I had forgotten
So,
about that too.
yeah.
But anyway. But my thought was, if I say anything to them, they would not let me come. They would not let me even try. My dad's a lawyer. I was studying law. I was going to take over family
the family
business, all that
business,
stuff. And I'm
right.
like, and I was just way too crazy in love to let that deter me. So,
Right. And who would want their daughter to
so
go thousands of miles away?
right?
and-
Yes.
I mean, even though they've met Mike, you're a nice guy and all.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and,
They like
and they've
me.
met you and they like
Yeah.
you, but it's still,
it was still a
4,000
huge
miles away.
shock.
Right.
So my poor parents, I just pray that none of my kids do that to me. But it takes them 6 hours to get from São Paulo to Assis. There were no phones or anything like that, cell phones. So they had to drive all the way back, and then when they got there, then they called Michael's house, and they were like, "What is
Yeah,
going
so what's
on?"
that call like?
So that call
Who
is
did they talk to?
interesting. They talked to me.
Okay.
Michael did not speak a word of Portuguese back in the day.
Okay.
So yeah, we had this conversation, and my dad said, "Well, you know what? I'm not going to stay in your way, but I'm also going to help. I'm not going to help you, financially. So you need to figure it out.
Yeah. If you're making an adult decision.
You're making an adult decision.
you're-
It's on you."
Right.
So we talked, and I talked to my mother-in-law, who was an angel, and she was just like, "Well, you can stay with me, until you go to college and all that, until the semester begins, So we did. I had my scholarship, and I could work 20 hours a week. Back, in the day with my student visa, I could work for
Okay.
20 hours a week. So I got a
And
job.
you were working at the college?
I was working at the college for my scholarship, and then I could work outside of college 20 hours a week.
Okay.
So I,
And Mike, you're
I did
still
that,
in
and he
college
was in
at
college.
this point, at the same college.
Same university.
same
yep.
college.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
6 months later,
Westchester University in Pennsylvania.
6 months later we got engaged, and
Yeah.
the rest is history.
The rest is. So I know. So you're engaged. Mm-hmm. I want Mike. I want you to tell the wedding story. So how long were you engaged?
We were
And then
engaged for 2 years.
2 years. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
time.
we wanted as many people from my family and my friends in the U.S. to be able to go. We were going to get married in Brazil. That was her desire, to get married in Assis in Brazil with her family, and I was like, absolutely.
Right.
And but I said, well, I want to give my family an opportunity to go, and nobody had any money, and so I said, well, I'm going to give you all 2 years to save up. So
Right.
we actually sent our wedding invitations out 2 years before the event.
Like a save the date.
Save the date
Okay.
and say
Kind of
if you want to go, we're
Yeah,
gonna
this
put
is
you on
where
the
it's
gonna
list.
be,
This is where it's
and-
going to be.
yeah.
Here's how much it's going to cost. We basically put it together like a tour, like a vacation tour for a week. And so people flew down there. We had 30 people ended up going.
Spend New Year's there with
yeah,
us.
they flew
and-
down on New Year's Eve and then spent the whole week. And then on the 6th of January, we got married.
Yeah.
And so they were there for that too. And then everybody flew home and we went on our honeymoon.
Yeah.
So it was pretty wild. I proposed on Christmas Eve. She had no idea it was coming. We had talked about it, so I knew the answer would be yes, because I'm not completely insane. But I think she thought, we'll wait, because I hadn't even graduated yet. She hadn't graduated yet.
Right.
Yeah. He called my dad with the help with the help of my sister-in-law, who had lived in Brazil with me for a few months, so she spoke a little Portuguese. And he called my dad to ask for my hand in marriage, and my dad said no. Well,
Really?
so he likes to explain that my dad just didn't get it.
I like to explain. It's true. He didn't.
But
he didn't understand.
In Brazil, the couple decides that they're going to get engaged, and then they just communicate to the family, right?
Yeah, there isn't an ask.
So
So
it's not
you don't
a-
ask the
permission.
dad
Right,
and all
it's more
that.
of
So
I guess it's more of a tradition here than it is.
It is, and I didn't
in
know
Brazil.
that.
Yeah.
So he calls my dad, and my dad says through the translator, my dad says like, no, that's up to her. I'm not gonna give her hand in marriage to you. That's a decision that she needs to make.
And I tried to
and he's like,
communicate,
no,
yes.
I'm asking permission.
Right.
And my
ask.
dad was like, no, I'm not giving you.
I'm asking permission to ask. And he's like, no, you have to ask her. I'm like, exactly. That's what
Yeah,
I'm
that's
saying.
why.
Anyway.
So I took that no as a yes and went ahead and
Just a
asked.
miscommunication, just a
Yes.
misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
So, from what I understand, though, this event, the wedding, was quite an event, even
It was.
locally in
Yes.
Assis.
It was a
So-
big event. It was the first time that we had 30 Americans
Yeah.
in Assis,
Up
period,
until about 2 years ago, it was the record for the largest number of Americans in that city
that we
at
were
once.
there. Yes. Well, actually, I mean, who goes to Assis, right? Nobody. There's
Yeah.
nothing to do there.
It's not a
So
tourist
Mike was a
town or
novelty.
anything.
Nobody, 30 some years ago, no Americans went to Assis. So when he was there the first time, it was a big deal, right? Everybody in town knew that there was an American there. Now you put 30 together, it becomes this
Yeah.
huge thing.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but this was actually written up in the local newspaper.
Yes,
Front
Americans.
page.
Front page.
Americans invade Assis.
That was the headline.
Yes.
I still have it.
And
We
stealing
have
our
that
women.
paper.
Stealing the Beta Seas to steal our women.
But it was crazy. We had Brazilians have large weddings. So we had about 650 people at our wedding,
Those
almost
were
700.
Invited people.
Those were
Invited
invited
people.
people.
I mean, that's a huge wedding.
Which is a huge wedding.
Yeah.
But then you have the curious people come. So a church that fits about 1,000 was packed.
Yeah.
There was like standing room only,
There
know.
were people standing in the doorways on the side of the church to watch.
Like to watch and to see, how, because we did the American
What a
way
great
and the
story.
Brazilian way, and
Yeah.
so it was just.
it was our 15 seconds of fame.
That's right. That's all that it
Do
lasted.
we have clippings of the
Oh, yes.
newspaper? I
Oh,
gotta
we
see,
do.
I got to
We
see
do.
those
We
at
do.
some
Yeah.
point. I would love to
I
see
have to
that.
show you that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a picture of all of them.
That's great.
It's quite fun.
Yeah.
So you guys, so now you're married. Are you done? You're still not graduated. But what's next for both of you at this point? You get married.
I graduated right before the
The wedding.
wedding. She still had a semester to go. And
So right after he graduated, he worked in Philadelphia for a time, and then he was a commercial diver for a season. And then I graduated with a degree in political science and international relations. So we thought moving to DC would be the best move, for us. So I graduated and we moved to Washington, and there we stayed until we stayed until
years.
2000, for about 10 years or
Yeah.
so. We
and
were
so
there.
you're working. What are you doing for work at this time? You're not yet in ministry at this
No.
point, which is kind of where I want to go next. Is
Yeah.
what's the transition, or what are you doing, and then what happens?
so when I graduated, I went to work at the University of Pennsylvania in their medical school at a laboratory doing basically diving research.
Okay.
Like hyperbaric research, if you know what that is, for the Navy. And through that, I got connected with some people that did underwater construction, underwater inspections, things like that. And I thought, at the time I was, 21, 22, and I thought that was awesome and really cool, and the money was good. And so I decided I was going to go into that. And so I started doing that kind of work, doing underwater construction, inspection, salvage, things like that. And when we moved to Washington, I just kept doing that kind of work. She was working for a law firm initially, and then eventually went to work for a couple of different airlines, doing some customer service stuff, some translation work, and customs and immigration and that kind of thing. And then we got pregnant with our oldest, Michael. And during that year, a couple of my coworkers had been killed in accidents, in diving accidents, and that was a little bit of a wake-up call.
Right, you start to think.
You start to think.
Right.
You got a child on the way, and I was like, and there was a lot of travel. I mean, I would leave, dark 30 on Monday, and I wouldn't get back until nearly midnight on Friday if I came back.
Wow. Okay.
And sometimes it would, the jobs would go through the weekend, and it was just a lot. And so we decided that wasn't, a good idea for a family, and I stopped that work. And she was still working for the airlines. I went to work as a temp. What was I making when we started? $19,500. And I was at a little company, and
I'll never forget that number.
I remember those days.
Yeah.
I think I remember my first one was like 17.5 or
There
18.5.
we go.
Yeah.
And when I was diving, I was making $50 an hour. So, you go from this to
It's a pay cut.
it's a huge pay cut.
Right.
But I was home every night, and that was what we wanted. It was a little company in Herndon, Virginia. And then I stayed there, and eventually I became they hired me full time, and then they made me the manager of the customer service department, and then there was a couple of buyouts and things like that, and eventually the company became a division of Fidelity National Financial, and so I was working for them, and I was the operations manager of that division. So I had kind of climbed the ladder. I had an office.
Yeah.
I had an office in San Diego. I had an office in Virginia, and that was what we were doing. It was climbing the corporate ladder. The next move was to get my MBA and maybe a VP seat at some point. Like, it was kind of my vision or my track at that time.
So obviously something happened then at
Yeah.
somewhere around this time or shortly after this time that changed the trajectory. So what's that story? How did you come to Christ? How did
Oh, wow.
and then what
Yeah.
was the decision to get into ministry from there?
So I had come to faith when I was probably 8 or 9 years old. Had walked away and had kind of a prodigal season from the time I was in, 7th grade until my sophomore year in college. So at this point in our lives, I had recommitted myself to the Lord. I was, we were going to a great church in Northern Virginia, and, raising our kids there and just really loving it. And, we would go every year. We would go to Brazil to visit her family, usually at least once a year. You would go more often than that, but I would go down, we would go as a family once a year. And that had been the case for a few years ever since we got married. And if you've never been to a third world country, I know you have, but there are things like when the first time you go to a developing country,
It's a shock.
it's a shock. You
yeah.
see things and you're like, oh, wow, that's different. And the thing that really hit me hardest, well, actually didn't hit me hard, but the thing that I noticed was how many children there were. I was used to, adults begging on corners with signs and stuff like that. I'd never seen kids doing that. And when I got there were, kids living under bridges and begging on street corners, and you'd go out to have dinner at a cafe or something, and, you'd have kids coming up to you and begging for food or money while you were having something to eat. And so this particular year, I think it was 99 to 2000, we went down for New Year's, Christmas and New Year's. And I, at the time, was doing, like, my morning devotionals were on the subject of the compassion of Jesus and how Jesus felt things. He felt things, and it wasn't just a feeling, but it was a feeling that moved him to action. And Jesus wept, or Jesus looked at the crowds and he took compassion on them. It was this whole idea of the compassion of Jesus and the fact that he took action. And as I'm studying this, and we go to Brazil to visit her family, and we're going through the streets of the city on the way out of town, and I'm like, and it occurs to me that I I'm not feeling anything. Like I notice it. I notice the poverty. I notice the kids, but I'm not feeling any compassion. I had no impulse in me to say, this is wrong and somebody needs to do something about it at all. And for the first time, that really bothered me, because I started thinking to myself, I'm like, I'm a Christian, which means I'm supposed to be becoming more like Christ. And if Jesus is like this, how come I'm not like this? And it really got under my skin. So we decided, I decided that I was gonna pray, right? You don't have because you don't ask, right? So I said, okay, I'm gonna pray for that. And so I spent that night just really praying, like, God, I want to have the compassion of Jesus. I want to have the compassion of Jesus. And literally the next morning, I rode with my father-in-law back into the city, and as part of that trip, we stopped at a traffic light, and there were probably about, 5 cars in front of us, and there was a little boy, couldn't have been any older than 8 or 9 years old, the age I was when I came to faith, which is kind of interesting. And he was begging, and he was I was watching him, and he's coming from that first car and knocking on the window, putting his little hand out.
And
yeah. And I'm watching this kid come back, and of course my prayer now is going through my head, and I'm watching this kid, and he's coming back, and he gets to our car, and he stops on the driver's side, which my father-in-law was, and he doesn't knock on our window, and he doesn't stick his hand out, but he just looks straight across past my father-in-law and locks eyes with me. And we're just staring at each other. And I get choked up. I mean, I've told this story thousands of times, and I get choked up every time I tell it, because something broke. Like, it was... Yeah, I don't want to say that there was no audible voice, in the car or in my head, but it was in my heart. God was saying...
Right, it hit different than it
God
had been.
said, yeah, you want the compassion of my son, here it is. Get ready. And it was like a flood, and the light turned, and we pulled away, and I just wept. And I had to kind of hide my head, so my father-in-law was like, what are you doing over there?
What's wrong with this
Weirdo, what's
guy?
wrong with
Right.
you? And that started something. When I got back, I got a hold of Patricia, and I'm like, we got to do something. Like, I told her what happened. I'm like, we got to do something. And she's like, okay, take it easy. But that started a process of us really getting more engaged in our church. That was actually the first thing, because up to that point, we attended the church, but we weren't super involved. We weren't really volunteering anywhere. And when we got back, we're like, we need to be serving somewhere. And so we just jumped in with both feet and started serving in the church in all kinds of different ways.
Yeah. And it was through that in children's ministry at that church, because we were serving, the person that was in charge of children's ministry paid attention to Michael, and she was like, you would be an amazing children's director. Are you interested? And we prayed about it and all that, and we're like, yeah. So that's when we jumped into ministry.
Okay.
Yeah, the one thing that happened in the midst of that, that really pushed things, because we both went in prayer, and we're like, okay, Lord, if you want us to do something, we don't know what it is, we don't know how, but we're willing, and we want you to prepare us and open doors for us and show us where to go. And we just bought a house, and this was in 2000.
In Virginia.
And, a little bit, like a year later, 2001, September 2001, we have 9/11. And the company, the division that I was managing was, we did corporate real estate risk assessments, basically. We analyzed risk for big major banks and things like that. They were doing commercial loans.
Okay.
Well, if you remember, after 9/11, by the winter of 2002, the commercial real estate market had just gone in the toilet, and the company decided they were going to sell our division. And so we were in negotiations for a little while, sold the division off, and I was faced with the decision of, do I move to another city and take another job with this company? And they wanted to send us to Minneapolis, or do we just say, okay, Lord, if this is from your hand, we're going to stay put and see what you have for us. And so we chose to stay put and be unemployed for a few months.
That's scary.
It was super
Yeah.
scary because
Yeah.
we had just bought a house, like not even a year earlier. So we had a mortgage and we had, 2 little kids, a third one on the way. But
Little
God,
scary.
it was scary, but God provided in some
Provided, yeah.
miraculous ways through that.
That is scary. How long was that kind of influx period for you? You said a couple months?
So it was about 3 or 4 months of unemployment.
Yeah, unemployment.
Then I tried to sell cars very briefly. I say tried because I was not very good. I think I sold 4 or 5 cars, and over that period, it was another 3 months of trying to sell cars. And then there was a community center, a pretty big community center that was looking for an operations manager. And at this point, we really had kind of sensed that what God wanted us to do for kids was to establish sort of a Christian community center in Brazil, in one of these neighborhoods that we had seen, where we could, almost like Boys and Girls Club, but a Christian version of that. And so when there was this job that came up for a community center, I said, okay, Lord, well, I don't know I don't know how you manage a community center, but I guess I should learn.
And I need to learn because this is what I want to do.
Right. And so I applied. It was not making nearly enough to pay our bills, but we decided that that's what God wanted us to do. So we're like, all right, Lord, you're going to have to make up the gap here. We're going to do it. And he did. We did that for a year. And then at the end of that year is when the church approached me and asked me if I would consider being, taking over the children's ministry at the church. And we thought, okay, that's something else I need to learn how to do because I don't know how to do that either. So
Yeah. So then we jumped into ministry, and
that was 2003. Yeah, 2003 when I took that position.
And then a couple of years later, we, the market went up with the houses. I mean, there was just like this. Our house almost doubled in price. So at that point, the Lord opened the doors for us to sell our house and move to Brazil with our family to establish Open Arms, which is the nonprofit organization that we run now.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
so. What was? It opens up that what was going through both of your minds. Producer, I'll start with you first. You're moving back home.
I fought with the Lord every step of the way, I think.
Yeah, you weren't excited to
No,
be
I
heading
was.
back. Or,
I
no?
was, but at the same time, I was terrified. Here we are in Northern Virginia, just a great place to be, tons of opportunities for the kids. We had a home, we had friends, we had a church that we just absolutely loved.
I'd been on staff at this point for like 2 years, and
it was just
children's ministry was booming. I mean, everything was
like perfection. It was just so good. And the Lord said,
And
it's
you hear-
time.
Yeah, and you just, but you have this feeling like you
And
have
I'm
to
like,
do this.
Lord, is it really time? Is it really time? And then I just kept thinking, a prophet does not have, what is it they say? There's a prophet
There's
has
no
no
prophet has no honor in their own
town. And I'm like, I'm going to
Oh.
go back, starting.
Right.
I'm like, because I grew up Catholic. And if you know anything about the Catholic Church, my mom sat down with me one time and she was like, where have I gone wrong with you? Just because I left the Catholic Church,
yeah.
And so it was just hard. It was like they would look at me like I was just this black sheep. And I'm like, I'm not, I know everything that I know because I grew up in a loving home, the Catholic Church, and it's like I know Jesus. I just did not understand that I needed to have a relationship with him, that it was not based on works. But for my family, that was very hard to understand.
And Mike, what are your thoughts at this time? You're moving to a whole country. You've now lived. You're born and raised in America. You're in your mid-20s at this point, right?
30.
I was
or close to 30.
I was 30.
31, 32.
2005. I was 32. Yeah, I was going to be 32.
I mean,
they say that your frontal lobe develops by the time you're 25. I think mine was delayed.
Very delayed.
Delayed because I just didn't. I didn't really have any concerns. So when we went in 2005, we took a trip back to Brazil. At this point, I was on staff at the church, and we took a trip back to Brazil in 2005, and I and a friend of ours who's a pastor there, we sat down with him, and I sat down with him to have coffee, and he's like, listen, I got to tell you this vision that God's given me. And I'm like, okay. And he starts to lay out this vision, and it's exactly the vision that we had for Open Arms. We didn't have a name for it yet. It wasn't called Open Arms or anything, but he laid this whole vision out, which was basically our vision. And I had never told him any of this stuff. And so when I'm listening to him, and I'm getting goosebumps while I'm listening to him, and he gets to the end, he's like, I just feel like we need somebody to own it and to run it and to start it. Would you consider coming here?
All right. And so you didn't,
And
I mean, this is totally out of,
This
out
just-
of the blue.
yes.
Now, but the thing
but
is,
he has you in mind.
right.
Yeah.
And you are
And we
wanting
were
to do
like,
this. And
we
you-
wanted to do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
He had no, like, there was,
Yeah.
we had just been waiting. Like, we had basically said to the Lord, okay, Lord, like, you prepare us, and when it's time to go, just tell us it's time to go. And so once this conversation happened, I went back to Patricia, and I'm like, I think it might be time
It's
to go. And so when we actually got ready, the cool thing is, I mean, there's lots of cool things, but in 2000, when we first were like, God wants us to go to the mission field, we had just bought a house for like, I don't know, $170,000 in Northern Virginia. And our initial thought was, I guess we just have to sell it and leave and go to Brazil. And a gentleman, older gentleman from our church, who was much wiser, was like, hold your horses, wait for God's timing. Like, don't get ahead of yourself. And we waited. And during those, 2.5 years that we waited, we got a ton of experience. We learned what it meant to run a ministry with, over 100 volunteers. It was a very large church in Northern Virginia, 400 kids. And we got all of that experience. And that house that we bought for $170,000 in 2005 sold for $405. And so
More than doubled, yeah.
yeah. So the seed money to start that ministry we had, which we didn't have when we
Excellent.
Because we had no supporters. We didn't have.
Right. It was just an idea in our
us.
heads.
It was an
and
idea.
It's kind of hard to raise money on an idea.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so it happens then.
So it happens.
So it happens. You get
Yeah.
to Brazil. Then what? What's the beginning of
Then,
Open Arms?
First, we get to Brazil and we have to learn how to live in Brazil, right? The kids did not really speak Portuguese. So, I have to enroll them in schools, and there's no such thing as Portuguese as a second language or anything. Nobody would speak English. So we got the kids situated, and praise God, within 3-4 months, they're all speaking Portuguese, which was really cool. At the time, they were 3, 6, and 9.
Yep.
So that was one part. We had to learn, because I had left Brazil when I was 18, not really an adult. I mean, I never really had to live on my own in Brazil.
Right.
So we're there trying to figure out bank systems and, politics and cars and,
Right.
How do you pay
how do
bills?
you
Where do
pay
we
your
live?
bills and all of those
Yeah.
things. And
Her parents, had
they
a home,
helped us.
and they
Yeah.
let us live there rent free, which was nice. So
Yeah.
and it was right around the corner from them, so that was helpful,
Yeah.
obviously. But we didn't know how to do anything. Like, we didn't know how to pay bills.
yeah.
We had to get, there's so many funny stories.
and you want to
with it.
start this organization,
And we wanted to start
Right.
this.
and you don't know anything about a business. Like, how do
Right.
we even start
Yeah.
a business, and what do I need to start
So-
this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do
So
I
we
need
got
a-
together
yeah.
with this pastor that had that same vision, and he introduced us to a lawyer from the church. And this lawyer sat down with us, and we then began to put on paper, what is it that we want to do? Because we needed to have like the guiding rules. We needed to have documents.
Yeah, all of
we
the-
need to register
all
with
of
the
the things.
government.
Basically,
we
like
needed to
the
have,
equivalent of being a 501c3.
501c3. You need that
exactly. We needed to
approval
have
and-
all of those
Yeah.
things. We had to put a board together. But we started the ministry in the sweetest way. We formed our board. We had all the documents, everything squared away, and then we opened up this little garage door of this little building that was a church, literally a garage door.
It was
that
a
we opened up.
one-room church. It was a one-room church that used to be a mini market, and it was basically a garage door and a room.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
And
Just a
we
storefront.
just
Like,
just
open it
exactly.
up and, yeah.
We opened it up and we just put flyers all throughout the neighborhood saying what we were going to do, and we had 30 kids sign up, and that's how we
Yeah.
started. It was just so cool and so sweet and very intimate. And we had a lot of people volunteering.
A lot.
And
Well, it was kind of nice because of the celebrity of being the only American in town. Everybody wanted to volunteer. So we had lots of volunteers in the beginning.
Yeah.
It was great.
so
Yeah.
that was great.
Yeah.
And, just fast forward, Open Arms is now what? 20? How old is Open Arms?
We're in our 20th year.
20th year now.
20 year
So it took
anniversary
from the
now.
time
Yeah.
we got there to the time we got all the bureaucracy done and opened the door to start. We got there in January, on July 9th, 8th, 9th of 2006 we started. So we got there January 06 and started in July with
Yeah.
that first group of kids.
Yeah. But it's just
So-
cool to see now how the ministry has grown in 20 years.
Yeah.
You know.
What do you
And
so that first, like when you're first starting out, what are you doing with the kids? Kind of what do you do? Is it very similar to what you do now with them? Has it changed over the years?
It hasn't really changed much, to be honest with you. Back in those days, in that part of Brazil, kids only went to school half a day. And so we filled the whole second half of the day. And so it was,
And you're doing Bible lessons and
Yeah. So essentially, the kids show up and there's a lot of free play time in the beginning, and they're just kind of, as they kind of trickle in, because in Brazil, very different from here, kids just are out and they're walking and they're, in the street. And so they just kind of come in and we'll play games. And we had all of our volunteers were trained and prepared to just be there hanging out and having fun with the kids. Once everybody's there, we pull everybody together. We have a time of worship and a time of teaching, and then the kids get into small groups and they talk about what it was that they learned in the lesson. And this was a big part of it that was attractive, I think, to a lot of the kids in the community, is we then had basically like the kinds of activities you might find in a rec center, dance or English, soccer, karate, art. We had a little mobile library kind of a thing. And so a lot of those sort of activities, because in the communities where we work, those sorts of things aren't available. Because those are all, in Brazil anyway, those are all pay to play type activities. So if you want your child to be in ballet, that's going to be a pretty big investment. So we were providing those things to these communities that didn't have those things already. And then
And lunch.
and food.
and lunch
And yeah,
We did lunch.
right?
and Bible stories.
Yeah. So there was, it was evangelism and discipleship. Those are the two things that was from the get-go, is like, this is what we're about. And we're going to use these platforms as environments where we can do evangelism and discipleship. So if we're going to have a dance class, it's going to be a dance class whose main objective is to share Christ and disciple kids in their walk with the Lord. If we're going to do art class, and we had some great volunteers in that first, I remember back, because we were, very hands-on at that time, that would do just art projects and take the kids out to collect seeds to make jewelry, and they would go out into the community and find these trees, and the art teacher was explaining,
Cool.
how God creates different seeds in different ways and how they all function, and then so it was wonderful. And we saw a lot of fruit. We saw a lot of, in those early days, and then it began to grow from there.
Yeah. So you start off 30 kids. You grow. How many kids do you have?
Oh boy.
Like do you?
Today we're reaching, over 1,500 or something?
Yeah,
like
it's probably
that?
about 1,500 kids on a weekly basis. And so we are in the town that we started in. We're in 5 different neighborhoods in that town. We have, soccer schools. In addition to that rec center type feel that we have with the kids, we also have soccer schools that function outside of that, and Bible studies throughout the week, so that those kids can go and be fed, outside of that main, gathering. So there's 5 in the city that we started in. There's a city next door that's got one, and then we're in 2 other states, and we've got partners in other parts of Brazil. But I would say probably about 1,500 kids that are
Constantly,
constantly there.
Constantly in the program now.
Yeah.
So you're down there. You've established this now. How long I mean, obviously you come back because you're here now,
Yeah.
which we're so thankful for. But how long
Yeah.
are you down there before you come back, and then why?
So-
Like, what's the story there?
So we were there for 7 years. And then at the end of 7 years, we thought it's time to go to the U.S. just on a furlough. Because, like I said, we started the ministry with the money that we used for the sale, of the house.
Yeah.
And then we started developing partners once the ministry was up and going and all that. So it was time to come back here to just fundraise, right? Just to go and talk to the people that were helping us out and try to get other churches involved and all that. So we were going to take a year of furlough and bring the kids home, right? To be with Michael's side of the family and all that. So during that time that we were here, the pastor for children's ministry at our old church, the one that we just went back to, Reston Bible Church.
Okay.
He approached Michael and he said, "You wouldn't by any chance be interested in coming back, would you?" And at the time, young Michael was about to go to college. I was struggling with that a little bit. But again, things in Brazil were going really well. I had gone back to law school because I thought Open Arms could use a lawyer, a
Right.
pro bono
Legal
lawyer
advice,
and all
right.
that. And
Yeah.
so I had gone back to law school. The kids were all doing well in school. And I thought things are just going smoothly. And just like happened before,
Just like-
7 years before that.
it's
right.
things are going great. Michael comes and he's like, "So how do you feel about coming back?" I'm like, "All right." So we had somebody in Brazil to take over the ministry that was just going extremely well, and we thought, I guess it's time to leave it in the hands of locals. And then Michael would come back here and work at the church that we had started with
Right.
and fundraise for Open Arms as well.
Yeah, and it was an interesting thing because we had, over those 7 years, we had, had these group of young people that had grown up in the ministry, had become volunteers, and that were kind of moving into leadership roles. But one of the things that I noticed, particularly in that last year that we were there, is that, even though I was delegating, I'm like, you just do it. Like, what do you think? Go, lead. They would come to me. They would defer to me on almost everything. It was always coming back to Uncle Mike, because they'll Chew Michael, Uncle Michael is what they all
Okay.
call me.
Yeah.
And so all these now adults, right, they're coming back and say, "Uncle Mike, like, what should I do, or how should we lead? How should we do this and that?" And it just kind of occurred to me. I'm like, I think I'm stunting their growth. Like, just my being here is keeping them from being able to kind of step up. And so when the church had expressed, like, "Hey, we could really use your help back here," and I'm like, okay, maybe, So we prayed about it again. We went back. We talked to
the
our
kids,
kids. We
talked to
talked
the
to the
board.
board, and we're like, what do you guys think? Does this feel like it's a God thing, or am I just, is it just whatever, And everybody kind of came down and said, "No, I think this is the Lord." And so we came back in 2013. Packed up, came back. And it was, for the guys in Brazil, that it was rough in the beginning. It was rough, and I spent a lot of time on the phone. A lot of time on the phone.
I just had this picture in my head just from the message this
Yeah.
past weekend of the pruning of the bush.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was a lot of pruning happening.
Pruning, and you
On
were
both
that
sides.
big branch that was
Yeah.
probably carrying,
Right. Yeah, I needed to be pruned.
but
And
in
it-
that pruning, it's the tree is in shock, and they were reaching back out to you.
Yeah.
But
And it's
but
been
then it produced fruit.
A lot of fruit.
a lot of fruit.
A lot of fruit. They did fantastic in the next 10
And,
years.
And even
Yeah.
the 7 years that we were there, like, we were being pruned. Like, when we left Virginia to go there, I had like a crisis after we first got there, because I had been, for 2 years leading a ministry of 400 kids and 100 volunteers, and I was speaking and I was teaching and I was writing curriculum. I was doing all these, right? I was feeling very important, right? And then I get to Brazil, and my Portuguese is like at the level of a second grader, and I don't have this great big team around me anymore. And I don't have, I've got a ministry of 30, right? And I had a crisis of thinking okay, God, what am I doing here?
Just curious,
why?
was that about 6 months in?
It was, yeah.
I think it was
that first year. That
first year.
and
Yeah.
it
rough.
was like some of the things that we were confronted with that weren't a reality for us in Northern Virginia of kids. I had a family that we were ministering to. That the kids were coming. These kids were being raised by their grandmother, and the one little boy had seen his uncle murdered in front of him over a drug debt, and
Yeah, now you're
right.
So
now
now
you're
we're in
leaving
that,
too. Yeah, and you're like, what? No.
Yeah. So this is I'm there. We had just got.
No,
we had
that's
just
when
been
we
there
just
for
got
about a
there.
year. We'd
Yeah.
been there about a year.
Yeah, that was that first year
That
of
first
just
year.
like
That
really
was-
hard
okay.
things,
Right.
Girls that are 9, 10 years old
That are being
into prostitution, So,
Yeah.
and they're like my kid's age, and then you have your
Yeah. So seeing those kinds
doorbell
of
being
things.
constantly, people are always at your door asking for food and asking for things that you're just not accustomed to here.
Right.
It just shocks you again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So until we got used to that,
I felt
it
in the
was like-
beginning, I felt a little bit like Gideon. I actually wrote that down in a journal entry somewhere. I'm having a Gideon moment where God just said, you've got all these troops. Nah, I'm gonna knock you down to 300.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep taking
Yeah,
them
make your
away from
stand
you.
with
Taking
the-
it
I'm
down,
making
taking it
stand
down.
30.
Yeah.
with minimum, so make sure that I get all the
hard.
glory. And I'm like, okay. And then, I think facing a lot of the reality of the lives of some of these kids that was just not something that we were used to seeing in Northern Virginia.
Yeah, we had a girl that overdosed.
Yeah,
Like right
I mean-
after we had talked to her. I think she was 11.
She was
at
11.
the time.
Yeah, Tamidis.
Yeah.
So it was just like hard things.
So
Yeah. So you come back, and now you're splitting your time between Brazil and
Just doing that.
Reston.
Yeah.
You're at Reston
Yep.
at this point.
yeah, Reston Bible Church. I was their children's pastor at this point.
Yeah.
We're at Reston, and I got my job back with the airline industry, and things are going great. We're traveling. Young Michael goes to school. He wanted to study to be a pilot, and so he goes off to college, and
Yeah.
things are going well. The church is growing. Then our senior pastor, it was time for him to retire. He had started this church, so he had been there for a long time. So it was time for him to, retire. He moved to Nashville, and Michael had committed himself to help the transition, of this
From-
new pastor,
Right.
coming in and all that. We had been at the church for a long time. So we're like, just gonna, help out, and things are going great. I mean, family, we're just
I
surrounded
moved-
by
Yeah, we had pretty
Michael's
much my whole
family, they're
family
all
lives
there.
there, or did, and then I moved out of children's ministry into family ministry and became the family pastor. I had a children's pastor under me, and things were going again.
Wonderful.
Things were going great.
perfect.
Right. So that how did
And then the phone rings.
right? How did
So how do we get
how did all
here?
this come to be? How did Centerpoint come to be? Again, you're doing
Yeah.
well, and
Doing fantastic.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we had helped the like Patricia said, our senior pastor retired. We had his replacement, who was a guy that had been on staff with us already, which ironically was when Jason Great was the worship pastor in Northern Virginia. This guy was his senior pastor.
right. So
Yeah,
there's
it's-
the connection.
So there's
how
a
you know-
connection
right,
there,
How
yeah.
you know similar
Uh-huh.
people, and
We know a lot of the
know
same people.
each
We had
other.
never met each other, but
Yeah.
we knew similar people. So that transition happened, and things had kind of stabilized, and so we were just, doing what we were doing. And
But again, Northern Virginia, I mean, we had friends there our kids had grown up with.
yeah,
These
we've been
kids,
there
and they're,
for off and
just
on for
like-
20 years in
Right.
Northern Virginia.
So just longtime friends and family, and my job and your job. And like I
And so
said,
we're
the phone
lucky
rings.
enough, right? So we're
Yeah.
lucky enough to reach out and get a hold of you.
You're very sweet.
Which we're we're so happy. Like I'm so happy that you're here,
Thank you.
Us too.
We
and-
are.
and just to be like ultra open book here. I love it. My son is now been to Brazil with open arms twice.
Yep.
He's going in a month or so. He's going to go down for 4 to 6 weeks. Kind of don't know. It's an open-ended, and he's going to work for Open Arms down there.
It's going to serve, which is awesome.
That's awesome.
Right. Like, you know how important
Yeah.
that is to me?
Yeah.
Like, just so happy that you're here. So
And
we're
for us
glad.
too. And again, with, Center Point, it seemed that every time that the Lord, that we're up, and then the Lord opens the door for us to go somewhere else, He blesses that immensely.
Yeah.
So we got here, and again, like that challenging time, right? We got here. Wait, maybe I should let you tell the story of how we
got here in the
came
first
to
How we got-
come,
yeah, how we
to
got
get
here
here. How
and-
So I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know what was going on this end of things, but I was sitting in my office in Northern Virginia, checking email, and this email popped up from basically a ministry headhunter,
Right.
and it did like a little blurb about this thing. And I usually would just hit the delete button on those things, but this one, for whatever reason, caught my eye, and I thought, I wonder if I know anybody that might be interested. And so I clicked on it, and it took me to a web page, and then I can't remember exactly how it worked, but it was like, we'll be in touch. And I'm like, no, wait,
Wait.
no, not me. And then
We did that on purpose.
So he calls me
So
and
I
he goes
called,
like
like-
this, the weirdest thing just happened.
like, you're not going to believe what I've done. She's like, what? And I'm like, well, I'm going to be talking to this guy. And so the guy that works for the company,
I think Greg reached
yeah,
out to you.
yeah.
Right.
Calls me on the phone, and I'm like, hey, and he's like, hey, can we set up a time to talk? And I said, listen, I'm really not, like, I'm really good. I'm not really looking for anything. And he's like, give me 30 minutes. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. 30 minutes, whatever. It's a conversation. So when the day came to talk to him, and I, like, before that, like I said, I called Patricia, and I'm like, you're not going to believe what I did. She's like, oh dear, what now? I'm like, so anyway, so the day came for him to call, and that 30-minute conversation turned into a 2-hour conversation. And he was telling me all about Mitch and all about, which was First Christian at the time. And,
Right.
and kind of telling this, casting this vision in the story. And I'm like, ooh, this is kind of interesting. And at the end of the conversation, he's like, would you like to, have a conversation with Mitch? And I'm like, yeah, sure.
Why-
why
what
not?
would it hurt- what would it hurt?
It's not
Yeah.
going to
Right.
hurt anything,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, yeah, it'll probably be like 30
Half
minutes.
hour, right, yeah.
And again, it was like 2 hours. And I just, I think Mitch feels the same way. I hope so. I just felt like there was a connection immediately as we were on the phone and we were talking about,
Yeah.
a similar sense of humor. And, Greg eventually got off the phone call, and Mitch and I kept talking to each other. And
He was like, I'm out.
he's like, I'm out of here. But we're like, okay. And then Mitch said, listen, would you come down and just see the church, see the town, see the church? And I was like, okay. This was coming up on Memorial Day.
Yeah.
And so I told Patricia, I'm like, what do you think? It's like Memorial Day weekend. You want to go to Florida? She's
I'm
like,
like, what?
yeah.
No, I'm like,
Let's go.
Wait,
But
what?
she had talked to Mitch, because Mitch said this was really good. I like this about the interview process, because
You're right.
we actually
We
they're
talked
like,
with
okay, we got to
spouses
talk
too.
with the spouse
Right.
too. And
Yeah.
so we came down, and it was, and it was a lovely weekend. We got here, and at each point in the weekend, I kept, asking Patricia, like the first night we went out to dinner with Mitch and Michelle, and afterwards I said, so what do you think? And she's like, it was very nice, but I need to meet the church. I'm like, okay. And then the next night we had the dinner at somebody's house and at the Holstein's house. And
Yep.
after that I said, so what do you think? And she's like, that was very nice, but I need to
see
meet
the
the church. I'm like, okay. And so the next morning we came, I preached, and
Yep. And then we had a little lunch.
we had a
maybe
little luncheon afterward.
Yeah.
Yep. And what's very funny? The thing that got her, as we're sitting, there's a couple of things, but one, we were sitting in where we still sit today, over here on the side, and the worship team got up, and Eden got up to help lead worship.
Yeah.
And
She melted me.
yeah, absolutely
I'm like,
melted her.
that's
She's
a
like-
church
she's
that I
like,
want to be
that's-
part of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, just because it's always a production, when
Right.
there's like the worship and all that stuff and things have to do. And our church back home is wonderful. I truly love that. But it is very, to the second, right? You have to be on the list. You have to do this and that. And if you're not a fantastic singer, you can't. Anyway.
Right.
And here she is in pink cowboy boots,
Yeah. I love those
leading
boots.
worship.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I love to watch her too. She's like,
Yeah.
I know.
and she'll do,
Yeah.
yes.
which I love it. And it's one of the things it's great. But we still,
There's
I
still
think
excellence.
one of the things we do, we still have excellence in the
exactly.
production.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the excellence does
welcoming,
not
too.
keep people
Right.
from worshiping.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was
It
just
said something
it
to
just
us
said
anyway,
something
the
about the
character
church.
of the church. And then as I'm meeting people, as we're
Yeah.
meeting people in the back and greeting people, and I kept asking people, so how long, because you gotta have something to ask, right?
Right.
How long have you been here? And everybody was like, oh, I've been here 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, how did you hear about the church? Oh, this is my neighbor over here. They invited me. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
how did you hear about the church? Well, I've been here a month, and this lady
Right.
over here invited me. I thought,
Yeah.
wow. I'm like, okay.
Right, that's really cool.
Something's going on here.
Yeah.
And that was
Anyway.
Then when we walked out after church, and I said, okay, you've met the church. What do you think?
Yeah.
She's like, I think this might be where we're supposed to be.
It's funny. I'll be an open book here. When I remember that luncheon in the back room, which is now like the tiki room
Mm-hmm.
area. That's where we were sitting back there, and I remember thinking, she sold. I don't know about Mike.
I think he was like even
Yeah.
before he came
Yeah.
down here. I think the conversations that he had with Mitch, Mike was a starter. He loves to start things and to change things,
things and
and
grow
to
things and-
encourage people and
Well,
to
and create,
and create
created open arms. I mean,
and
that-
he's given the freedom here to do all that. So I feel like it was just like a combination of all
yeah.
kinds of
and
things.
we've grown. We've grown like crazy.
We
in
have.
the kids,
It's incredible.
in the family program. I
Yeah.
mean, we've gone from a
Yeah.
handful of kids
Yeah.
5 years ago
And then,
to,
of course,
I
you know-
don't know how many we have now, but I know it's
another
more
thing
than
that
that.
tenfold
really,
what we used to have. I
another
know that,
thing that
or
I'm like,
more.
I need to go there. I need to be part of that. It was the drum circle.
Yeah, the drum circle. That's what cinched it
That
for
sold
me.
it
And actually, more importantly, Mitch dancing at the drum circle.
at the drum circle.
Mitch
That
playing the
was-
drums. Yeah, he's,
Yeah.
Exactly. We should do that. We haven't done
Yeah,
that
we
in a
haven't done
long
it in a long
I
time.
haven't done the drum circle in a while.
Well, we
Yeah.
need to,
Right
maybe
on.
we need to bring somebody else down
Yes.
and come in and do that.
Oh no.
We don't talk about the drum circle. That drum circle.
Yeah, Elijah, you can cut
the drum circle.
the drum circle out.
but in
it's
all
very,
s-
it's very exciting.
Yeah. And in all seriousness, it's just people would ask me, what I was going to say too is like we got here, as far as moving again and how the Lord just blesses
Yeah,
us,
yeah,
immensely. So we got here the week before Ian. And I remember coming to that first service after Ian. It was outside.
Outside under the trees
yes,
here,
it
yeah.
was outside.
yeah.
And everybody was there. And it was just the most incredible family gathering that we had. And I remember saying to people, I'm like, I just don't have any history with anybody there. And that was hard for me, not having history. And God provided a history point for us where
Mm-hmm.
everybody came together. We were all cleaning the church. We were all serving.
Yeah,
we
we're
just
all in the same
developed this.
circumstance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was fantastic.
Hurricanes tend to do that. So
It
but
was
hopefully
incredible.
It's been
And,
nice lately, but
you know,
stay away, please.
Stay away, hurricanes.
And
Yes.
now it's going to be 3 years this
Yeah.
week. And I
Wow.
have the sweetest friends,
Yeah.
I would not trade
Love you
our
guys.
friendship. I love you guys. I love Zach. I can't believe he's going to be going to Brazil. It's just incredible. I love Mitch and Michelle. I love our circle of friends, and God has just been so good to us.
Yeah.
That if
he has been, and what I see, and maybe you can just, as we wrap up here, kind of make this kind of our last thought. He's moved you many times.
Mm-hmm.
We're praying for him not to move us anymore.
Yeah, we don't want you to
we
move
don't want to move anywhere.
We're like, no, this is it.
I want to know, like, looking back now on it, we talked about this
Mm-hmm.
pre-recording, the hand of God in your life.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of your final thoughts on how
Yeah.
do you see that? How do you recognize it now? And how does that make you feel looking back on it?
Yeah, it just makes me trust the Lord even more in all decisions. Even though I did not know what was going to happen, He was guiding it. And, He will work all things good, all things for the good of those that love Him and are according to His purposes. I messed that up. But
that's okay.
Anyway, you know what I mean?
You got it.
It's the
From
heart.
the time that I wanted to become an exchange student, I don't know why that was in my heart. To not being able to him opening the door and then coming in and him placing me like right across the street from Michael, who is, the greatest gift in my life. It was through that he brought me close to him. So I don't want to sound selfish in saying that all this was done so I could be close to the Lord, but it's a way that He used to bring me, close to Him.
To bring you closer.
And it's just, I just wouldn't trade anything. And and all the way through here, He has carried us all the way here, and I'm thankful He did.
Yeah, I am too.
Because we just love it here. We love Center Point. I love our family here. And
Yeah.
I just
And-
don't want
and
to
I
go
know
anywhere.
He will carry us and you into the next
next-
step, the next
Yeah.
season,
However it is we can serve Him.
however that is.
Whichever
Because
way
there's a
that
lot of
looks like.
unknowns as we go from this worship center
Exactly.
to a
Right.
new worship center, and
Yeah.
we go from a medium-sized church to
Yeah.
even a bigger church.
Yeah.
What do we know? We don't know the possibilities,
Yeah.
and
We have
looking
been
forward to that.
Yes, we have been, and I hope that if you can do this, it's been wonderful for us. We have been doing this thing every morning during our quiet time that we do together. We have been doing a silent. Was it 2 minutes, right? That we just
Starting with 2 minutes. We're
starting
going to
with
work
2
our way
minutes.
up.
It's
Okay.
been, I don't know, a few
We have a
weeks
hard time
now.
I'm
being
intrigued.
silent.
What's going on here?
But just for 2 minutes, we sit and we close our eyes and we just open our hands and we just say, Holy Spirit, how do you want to use me today? Just and just be and just
and sit in silence to
just sit in silence to try to listen to what the Spirit is saying to you. Most of the time, I end up praying. Mike was better
I
at
always tell her
just being quiet.
she can't even let the Lord get a word in it.
But it's just been wonderful. So I would encourage everybody to just, every morning, like you said, we just don't know what's coming next.
right. Well, it's just the quiet,
but get
still
your
voice.
mind in the right place.
Right.
You
Get your
know,
mind in the
and
right place and
just-
listen for that.
And just say, Lord, have your Spirit indwell in me and use me.
Yeah.
However that's going to be.
And sometimes he smacks you in the head with a 2x4, and other times he moves.
know?
He moves you gently.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm glad
Yeah.
that he's in control.
Amen to
Amen.
that.
Amen. Mike,
Amen.
anything that you'd want to add to this last question?
It's looking back. I would agree with Patricia. Like, I think it's faith building for me, and so I love to tell the stories. I love to go back and tell the stories of all the different ways. And there's a bunch of stories we didn't tell.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And it's
20 years worth of stories.
20 years worth of stories.
Right.
Plus
30
30
something years
for-
worth
yeah.
of stories now.
20 for open arms.
Yeah. And just seeing how God has knit all of this sort of this tapestry together is, I don't know, gives you courage to go into the next thing. Be like, okay, like God has done all of these really cool things, I don't know what the next cool thing is going to be. And maybe it's going to be a hard thing. Maybe it's going to be a pruning thing. But that's okay. Because he's faithful. And he's been faithful all along. And we can go back and we can look at it. We can see it. And we share the stories with our kids. And hopefully our kids will share those stories with their kids. Because like I said, we serve an amazing God. And the fact that we get to do that and be used by him and in whatever little way or big way we are is mind-blowing to me.
Right. Well, thank you both. I
Thank
appreciate
you for having us.
stopping in.
I
This
was
fun.
terrified of
I know
coming
you
here.
were terrified, and I'm glad
great.
we had a great conversation.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you for sharing
You're
your
awesome.
story and letting us
Yeah.
connect with you in a way that's not possible from Sunday on the stage.
Yes.
So we appreciate it.
Thank
Love you
you.
guys.
Love
look
you.
forward to the next few years and see where we're going.
Yes.
Thank you again.
Amen to that. Thanks.